Today we're taking a look at this AndyCine Boling P1 light that I was sent to check out. It has a lot of features, full RGB, bicolor, and some effects in it. I took it out for vlogging, macro photography, and also did some product videography and photos, and a little diorama thing. So all that's in this video. Gonna look at this in detail. Let's get started. It's a pretty compact light. It has an integrated mount with 2 pivot points on it with 7 mounting locations for screws. So definitely a lot of points to mount things on this light. Also full metal body, and the mount itself is metal as well. Definitely solid and has some real heft to it. Nice thing about this bracket is that it extends without any extra stuff. So you got right from the hot shoe all the way. Now it's pretty heavy. It's probably not a great idea to have it running on there, but general flash are about that weight. It's just there's definitely some weight outside of it. Buttons wise, on off button, a set button to switch between the 3 different modes. You've got the bicolor, you have the full RGB, and also the effects. So with that set button, you press that and it cycles through. You also have a jog wheel on there that is a button itself. You can change the settings with that, and one standard analog dial for adjusting the power level of whatever mode you're in. Another nice thing is that you can leave the light on and turn it down to 0 power just as I'm kind of walking around, and I don't have to keep messing with the on-off switch. The back screen shows you exactly what power level you're at, also what mode and sub-mode you're in. So if you're in standard bicolor, it'll give you the color temperature plus the percentage of power. When you switch to the RGB mode, you have one for color and one for saturation, and also, of course, the value for brightness. On the back, there is a scale to show you what value to pick for what color you want. I compared the P1 to 2 different lights that I have that are similar. One is the ProMaster. I have an old video on that one. Doesn't have bicolor, you just get that white light from it. Also, I have another one that has removable batteries. That one is actually bicolor. It's a little bit bigger, more diffusion on it. What I noticed while looking at the 3, the output seems generally similar. I really can't tell if it's got a lot more power than the other ones. With color temperature, I set the camera to whatever I was trying to output with the 3 different lights. With the ProMaster, it was giving me a green cast to it. The CRI rating is 75 or something like that. With the 95 rated P1, I was getting a little bit of a magenta, but it was definitely more true. The P1 has a lot more fine control on the light output. You've got 1% to 100%, and at 1%, 2%, 5%, you definitely get a lot less light, which is nice. In some situations where you don't need a huge bright light, it's nice to have. Of course, with the back screen, shows a actual number value. If you were to want a certain value, you can record that and go back to it. So with the ProMaster, it doesn't do that. It's just got an analog value, and you could leave it on that, but you won't be able to reproduce your lighting exactly because it doesn't have a number value. The P1 does appear to save the values for what you were running. I think there's a timer involved, but it does save it. It seems to be consistent if you leave it on for about 10 seconds. There is a USB-C port for charging. It does support the fast charging apparently, but I don't personally have any of those fast chargers. However, I did try it out on quite a few different chargers and they got similar results. It pulls around 12 watts and also about 0.17 amps from what I could tell with my device that measures that. AndyCine did send me a unit that did not survive its first charge, but they sent me a second one, and the second one appears to be just fine. I did have it set to 100% power running as well as charging it at the same time, and it did do the standard around 12 watts pulling for that situation. The light comes with a soft case that has loops for a belt. That worked nicely. It also comes with a small mount for cold shoes, hot shoes. Now it does shift a little bit here and there, especially when I was doing the macro photography, but it's decent. It has some rubber on it that helps that situation a little bit. So I pop it on and you got light right where you need it. You can adjust it up and down. That works very nicely. The macro photography is the best use case I've found so far with this light. If you're using a cage, it'll be even better, but with this setup and no cage, just as a camera plus the light, you get that nice extension. So I was using the Super Takumar 50mm f1.4 with the adapter from M42 to EFM mount, and then I had 2 EFM extension tubes. With the tubes, the lens, the adapter, had a perfect amount of extension for that setup with the light. With macro photography, the main thing you want to do is try to use smaller apertures so you get more in focus. And with a light like this that is positioned properly, that really helps. Because it definitely gave me some options for getting light right on the subject in those macro situations. I could adjust the light up and down to get even better angles for that. I could rotate it. Worked very nicely. Also, I tried some standard product videography, photography. Tried to do a zoom in with these lenses. And I think that would work nicely for the setup of a video about a certain product. Anything like that could work out. Also, just standard product photos. Adding a splash of color in the background or other situations. Of course, when you're trying to do that, you're going to want two different lights instead of just a single light. I did use a little bit of fill with a piece of cardboard for this setup, but in general, if you want to have some color, you're going to want two lights. I can see using this light for my hands-on videos at the local camera shop. Going to try it out at some point, but in general, it would definitely work just fine for that setup. With the vlogging, it worked out nicely. It definitely adds a decent amount of fill. At least give your face some light, and in that setup, it works out. Let's turn this off. Yeah, that's a big difference. Turn this on. I understand the vloggerness. See how bright it gets. Oh yeah, it's not bad, not bad. Of course, if you're using glasses like I do, you might get some reflections in the glasses. It's just depending on how you set up the lights, how you adjust it. But in this case, it has a pretty versatile mount system, so you could potentially adjust things to not have it reflect in your glasses. When I did go to the state park, it was very dreary and definitely a good situation for lights like this that add a decent amount of fill when it's not super bright out. I didn't have any issues with the output of this specific light. One thing to keep in mind with vlogging is this light is not lightweight. It definitely adds some heft to your setup. I did measure out the M50 with the 11 to 22mm lens, a battery, and a memory card versus this light itself. I think I gotta go two hands for this. It gets pretty heavy. I didn't have the light fully charged before going on the outing to the local state park, but it did last the entire time. I've been using the light quite a bit and it has got one bar down so far. What you can do is bring some type of battery with you. In this case, we've got the Power Grip from Vivitar. The Power Grip. It is a grip, and that is convenient. With some type of battery plus the light itself, integrated with the camera, that could be a very nice setup. In a studio setting, I tried to do a few different things. I had some Legos set up at a little diorama, so I was trying out the effects modes. If you are sensitive to flashing lights, keep that in mind. With this video, we're going to show you those modes. So with the Legos, I was doing those effects modes mostly, and I did set it to a standard power at one point, but I also tried a time-lapse, and one of the effects modes didn't really turn out how I was expecting, but I could see that as a fun option with just having the light running continuously and adjusting things. There are 9 different effects: lightning 1, lightning 2, TV screen glow, also the RGB loops, as well as the police, ambulance, and fire truck. Here is the bowling at 1% power. Let's bump that up a little bit before we do anything else. Some of the features that I might change or adjust in a future revision of the light. So with the end of the mounting setup, it would be nice if it were a little bit longer and it had some type of pin where with the proper adapter, it wouldn't shift. I have noticed that some other lights that have recently been released do have wireless control, like full wireless control or wireless charging. So those are other options. Let's go over the features that I really do like about the light. First off is it is full RGB with bicolor and effects that just gives you a lot of functionality light-wise in one device. It is definitely bright enough for a lot of situations. I didn't have any issues with amount of power output for the light with what I was doing. As I mentioned before, with macro photography, product photography, I'm definitely going to be using this light more. The general build quality of the light is very solid. You've got the metal casing and the metal bracket system. Having a back screen on there with exact values is very useful to be consistent with your photo and video stuff. You know, you can really dial down and remember those exact settings. And as I mentioned, I think on a timer it does save those settings. So if you turn the power off and on, it will go back to that as long as you let it run for a little bit. That was a look at the AndyCine Boling P1 Vlogger video lights. Definitely very versatile, solid construction on it. As I mentioned, the first unit that they sent did not survive the first charge, but this one definitely seems very functional. No issues with it. Sky Photography Bonsai, thanks. Charge it once a good thing you can do is bring some up. It is very colorful what you're trying to do, but let's redo that.